Maximum Ride and her flock, Fang, Iggy, Nudge, Gasman, and Angel, are just like ordinary kids, only they have wings and can fly. It may seem like a dream come true to some, but their lives can morph into a living nightmare at any time. Angel, the youngest member of the flock, is kidnapped and taken back to the school, where she and the others were experimented on by a crew of whack jobs. Her friends brave a journey to blazing hot Death Valley, California to save Angel, but soon enough they find themselves in yet another nightmare, fighting off the half-human, half-wolf erasers in New York City. Whether in the treetops of Central Park or the bowels of the Manhattan subway system, Max and her adopted family take the ride of their lives. Along the way, Max discovers that her purpose is to save the world. But can she? Maximum Ride, The Angel Experiments by James Patterson.
So, I would like to preface this episode with saying that I may or may not have an unpopular opinion. I loved this book when I was in high school. I wrote fan fiction about this book. I read the series for a while, and then it was one of the few series in my life that I put down and refused to continue reading. And I have some issues with James Patterson's writing. So I'm going to try really hard through this episode not to go on long-winded rants.
We're going to try to be fair. Especially because we know for sure that we have a couple of regular listeners now. And we know for sure one of you guys is a James Patterson fan. So we're sorry. We're not trying to yuck your yum, I promise. But I have also some pretty scathing critiques for this book.
So if you are a James Patterson fan and you would like to continue this conversation, just please feel free to reach out.
We're full of crap.
Yeah.
It's fine. This is analysis. It's fine. It's okay.
I will say, like, the reason part of me thinks that this is going to be unpopular opinion is because James Patterson is, like, the best paid author ever. Or at least in America. Yeah. He is really, really, really well paid. His net worth is like $95 million. In 2016, he tops Forbes list of highest paid authors for the third consecutive year. It's wild.
Yeah, that is extremely wild.
And another fact that I found is that in recent years, his novels have sold more copies than those of Stephen King, John Grisham, and Dan Brown combined.
See, that fact to me is pretty mind-blowing because you have to sell a lot to outsell Stephen King.
I know. I was shook. You
have to understand that we come from a Stephen King family, so...
We do. Our family... Yeah, I recognize that maybe this will not be the most popular opinion on the internet. However, I have to be true to myself.
I'm going to say that we're going to try really hard to be fair and do our best to treat elements that maybe we disagree with
care.
With some measure of academic respect, and considering them choices rather than...
And I do have some academic respect. I just...
Yeah, I think there's a lot of... We found a lot of good in here. We also found...
Some not good.
I had a great time listening to the audiobook for this, by the way, before we even get started. If you are an adult reading this book
and
for the first time...
if you decided to read it.
Especially if you have like a medical marijuana prescription or just absolutely check out the audiobook. Narrated by Evan Rachel Wood, who is this episode's winner of the Doing the Most award. She is doing so much. Oh my God. It's incredible. And I had a great time listening to it.
So this book covers a lot, but the main things that I think Patterson is really trying to convey in this book, his sort of main themes, I would say, for me, were destiny versus free will, and in that, freedom.
Or what is the nature of freedom?
Yeah. And then, of course, like subcategories of that, like the kind of themes that he sort of tackles but doesn't quite make the main theme.
What is family?
What is family? And then good versus bad.
Yeah. Like what is morality anyway?
Yeah. It's the book follows... You kind of hear in the blurb, but the book follows a young group of people. Max is kind of the leader, but...
Yes. Not kind of. She's unequivocally...
She's the leader. But she leads the group, but there's a couple of them. And essentially, when they were younger, they grew up in a lab, and it's called the school for some reason.
Mm-hmm.
But they grew up in a lab, and one of the gentlemen from the lab helped them escape and set them up in a rockin' house
Let
on
me
the
tell
mountain.
y'all a story about a man named
Jim.
An old scientist barely kept his family fit. Sorry.
Thank you, Jessica.
I'm done.
So he breaks them out of school,
Mm-hmm.
and they go move into this rockin' house on the mountains that's shaped like an E. It's mentioned several times that it's shaped like an E, including not just this book.
Yes.
They mention it
There's
in other
a lot
books
of
as well.
house porn in this book in general.
Is
but
there?
we'll
I
come
just
back to
remember
that
the
in
E
setting.
house.
It's in my notes.
Okay.
In setting.
So he takes them into the mountains in the middle of nowhere and kind of raises them for a while. We start the book 4 years after this. He has been missing for 2 years, and they assume that he's dead.
He's definitely not dead, even
A little
this.
bit.
No.
So they assume that he's dead, though. So they're living their lives. Max has a dream at the beginning of the book. It opens with a dream sequence of her running away from the school and flying. And you learn that these children are all like genetically enhanced mutants. They call themselves mutants a lot. But essentially, they're bird people. They have really light bones and wings and other varied abilities. And they can fly.
They have superpowers, honestly.
So
they have very convenient superpowers.
They are very convenient superpowers, but we'll get to that. So she wakes up, she makes breakfast. They decide to go pick strawberries because that's what Angel, the youngest 6-year-old, wants to do when they are attacked by what they call erasers, which are like half men, half wolf people who can morph back and forth. They are beautiful, beautiful people with beautiful, beautiful voices until they morph into wolf people and attack you. They're very strong.
Described as male models.
Yeah, they're very strong. So they attack.
They're totally not werewolves either.
So they attack and they kidnap Angel. They knock out Max and leave everybody behind, but they take Angel, and her group tries to like take chase and they fail, and they decide they're going to go after her. So on the way, Max decides to help out this girl that she sees down below while they're flying by that needs help. And she tells 2 of her flock mates, they call each other flock mates, she tells them to go on ahead and then she'll meet them up ahead at a specific place. And she goes down to help this girl who needs help and gets shot. It's just a grade. She's fine, but it's dramatic. And she ends up finding that girl somehow in the rain and getting assistance from her and her mom. Her mom happens to be a veterinarian. It's very convenient.
It is extremely convenient.
Even more convenient when you know what happens later in the books. So anyway, her mom is a vet, and they go there, or she goes there. Max goes there. Nobody else is with her yet. So she goes there, gets some help, spends a couple days with them recovering so that she can fly again, and gets really attached to them and then leaves. She makes cookies for the first time. It's a point. They make a whole thing out of it.
Mm-hmm.
So she leaves. 2 of her flock mates she left behind, Gasman and Iggy. Iggy happens to be blind, but they're really good at making bombs. So they make some bombs, blow some stuff up, kill some people. Some erasers. And
some not werewolves.
Yeah, and their area is crawling with erasers. So even though they got left behind, they decide, screw this, we're catching up with everybody else. So they catch up with Fang and Nudge, who she sent ahead earlier. And she finally shows up after recovering-ish. It took her 2 days to recover from being shot. So she shows up, and they're all together again. Hurrah. They stop in a town to try and get some food, like get ready to go and break into the school. And they get attacked, so they leave. And then they hijack a car, and they get chased. And they get attacked some more. And they get attacked some more. And then they get captured, kind of. Nudge, Fang, and Max get captured and taken back to the school, and the other 2 escape. So they're all in the school, and Max realizes Jeb is alive. He's at the school. He a bad dude. He's not good. And he pulls her into another room.
He's not your real dad.
He's not. He pulls her into another room, makes her some hot chocolate, tells her she's supposed to save the world. And she's like, okay.
And this is all a test.
Everything is a test.
It's all a test.
Everything is a test.
Everything is a test. You're getting some serious Mad Eye Moody vibes.
It's, constant vigilance. Yeah, so he tells her that it's all a test and she's supposed to save the world, and she's like, okay. And then we meet Ari. Well, we've met him before, but Ari is Jeb's son, who's like a child but looks like an adult, and he's also an eraser. So he's got some interesting quirks, and he takes them out into this field behind the school, and he's essentially going to kill them. And Iggy and Gasman come into the rescue. They all escape. And then you think the book is over, but it's not.
Nope. There's still lots of book left at this point.
Angel, the one who has been kidnapped, can read minds. So while she was in the school being kidnapped, she read the minds of the people around her.
Recon.
She did some recon. She learned some stuff. And as they're all drifting off to sleep happily in what you think will be the end of the book, she's like, by the way, I heard some stuff. And we are ready to go to meet our parents if we want, because I learned some information. And I think if we go to this place called the Institute that I heard some of them thinking about in their brains, we could learn some more information. So they decide, fine, we're going to find this institute. So they fly to New York, catch an outdoor concert. They run around New York for a while.
Yeah, they do.
They run around New York for a while. They continue to get caught by erasers and fight them and run and catch them and fight them and run. Eventually, they find the Institute. They break in. They get the information they need. They print it off. They save some other mutants that are stuck in cages. And, that's a thing. They get locked in, like, crates. And then they escape. And then Ari, Jeb's son, who is an eraser now, attacks Max. She sends everyone else ahead. They get into a fight in the middle of the sewer. He falls and breaks his neck on the wall. And she's like, oops. And then she leaving. And then Jeb runs out. And he's like, by the way,
my son.
That's my son. That's my boy.
God.
But on top of that, he's like, you killed your own brother. And she's like, what? And she leaves. She's like...
And she never considers the consequences of those words in any meaningful way.
I mean, she kind of does, but she's also like, but I can't think about this. So she leaves. They look over the stuff. They realize they can find their parents. And she's like, I'm going to help them find their parents, even though it sucks because nothing about her parents was in either of these. And she never thinks, but if he's my brother, maybe Jeb's my dad. Which is kind of weird, but whatever. So that's the end of the book. They decide they're going to find their parents and see.
Yeah. So that's how the book ends.
One more thing. Halfway through the book, Max starts getting these terrible, terrible headaches. And essentially, they mark the introduction of this thing called the voice, which is a voice in her head that tells her what to do, and she listens. And as far as we're aware, the voice is not her being crazy. It is, or not crazy, but like schizophrenic.
Yeah,
like,
it's like actually something speaking to her.
Manifests.
Because it also manifests in like
TV screens and computers and like crashes other people's computers. And like, it's kind of a character of its own, the voice. And the book sort of ends with her chatting it up with the voice and arguing. And
dropping another title drop.
Yeah, some title drops. So that's also a part of it, but not necessarily super relevant, but we may bring it up. So
I think the first thing we need to start with, really, when discussing this book is Max.
Well, just overall, his characters. Like, I just want to, I think, and I felt like this in one of his other books that I read that was not from the series, I think his characterization can be a bit sloppy at times. He uses characters for plot devices a lot. So he has really interesting character, like, outlines, but he changes them to suit his needs a lot, and so his characters can feel a bit all over the place. And on top of that, he likes to tell us how his characters are. He likes to spell out the character for me. Like, this person is like this. Whether they act like that or not, he tells me how they are.
Yeah, and I definitely wrote in my notes to that same end, the dialogue doesn't make any of the characters feel distinct. They all speak with the same voice. And by voice, if you're not really into your liberal arts studies, voice is the apparent tone of voice which our narrator speaks with.
I mean, I think I trust our readers. I think our readers, our listeners.
Our listeners. Sorry, I didn't mean to James Patterson, everyone.
But yeah, I definitely think there's a lot. The dialogue can be really, really cheesy during the action scenes.
It's not even the quality of the dialogue.
Yeah,
necessarily.
But it's
that
very samey.
They all sound the same.
Which I would give a pass to all of the flock members because they live and grew up together.
Yeah.
But the characters outside of that, it doesn't really make sense.
Exactly. Like, the only character that actually felt distinct in their dialogue to me was Dr. Martinez. Felt very distinct. Yeah. But that was about it.
Yeah, she was kind of the only one that was...
And she was the vet lady. Yeah.
But Max definitely kicks us off with that, and that she tells us what her character is right away.
Yep. I'm a leader.
She is the leader. she is strong. She's very strong. Emotions are bad, and she is strong. And she very much does not like to feel emotions.
She's very much not like the other girls.
So much. It's hard.
And I'm really mad that we had to bring this trope up so early again, because like we couldn't let it slide because it is so egregious in this book.
It's pretty in your face.
I literally wrote that the not like the other girl elements of this book are genuinely problematic for me. Several of the quotes about weakness equate weakness to needing help or appearing helpless or asking for help.
Which I think there are genuinely people and characters that feel that way.
Yeah, but
it was done in a way that was very like ham-handed.
It not just ham-handed. It didn't just feel like Max was the one feeling that way. Other characters reinforce that worldview from within and without the flock. Yeah. So, like, what is weakness? What is strength? Strength is being emotionless, like Fang, and not asking or needing to ask for help, and being willing to take risks as long as they usually pay off. Mm-hmm. That's what being a leader is described as by Max.
Yeah.
And being willing to take the heat when it goes wrong, which I appreciate that she discusses that or like the character discusses that in the context of a young adult novel, but it just is rather ham-fisted.
I agree. I like Max.
Yeah.
I really liked her when I was younger. I related to her because I was kind of like that, as you know.
We were all not like the other girls at some point.
Well, I think that's why that's so prevalent in YA fiction, because
that's why I feel so protective when I see it too. Yeah, though, I think, because I'm like, no, stop.
It's okay to feel that way to an extent, as long as it's not taken.
It's supposed to be canon.
Yeah,
it's supposed to be the lesson you're learning.
Yeah. So yeah, I agree with that. But I really liked her when I was younger because I was very much thought I was really clever and I was very sarcastic. Yep. And I very much do not still to this day like asking for help. I don't like crying in front of people. I know it's not weakness. I recognize logically that is not weakness. However, if I start to cry, I will hide from everyone because I don't want anyone to know.
I've seen her do it.
Well, she's seen me start hiding.
Yeah.
But yeah, I relate to that, especially when I was younger. I really related to that. And I think she's a lot of fun. Like, she's a fun character to read to an extent. Now that I'm older reading her, there's a lot that I felt less relating to her with.
Yeah. A lot of points it felt very artificial to me.
I think that was my problem with it now that I'm older reading it. It felt very set up and very like, he kept telling us that Max was this way instead of just letting Max be this way. And her continuing to say like, I don't cry and I don't do this. It felt very much, and I'm strong and I have to. It just felt very much like reiterating the point in case we, the reader, forgot. And if you have to do that, then maybe you're not doing it right.
Yeah.
Show, don't tell sometimes.
Yeah. And then, of course, we have our love interest. Fang.
Listen.
Jesus.
I like the design of Fang. I like the idea of Fang. I do not like the execution. Break it down.
Who is Fang for our listeners, Kayla?
Fang is Max's age. He's like 4 months younger than her, I think, but they're like the same age. And he is your emo boy. Well, no, he's your emo boy. He's your emo boy, but he's stoic. Like, he's like Sasuke, but slightly less annoying.
Strong and silent type is what you think. Strong but silent. He doesn't show a lot of emotion. Every time he does show emotion, it becomes a point of it's
it's like, oh my gosh, Fang actually he full smiled. Mm-hmm. What do we do? This must have been the best day ever.
In fact, I did make a note initially that his intro was kind of creepy. Like, the way he's introduced is kind of creepy.
He slides in like the night. He's like a ninja.
She literally refers to him as a dark shadow.
Yeah, a dark shadow come to life.
Yeah, it's icky.
That stuck with me all of these years.
Oh my God.
I sometimes will think of that line and be like, what? I've legitimately thought dark shadow come to life and then they've been like as an adult. Yeah, but the thing is Fang is really interesting and I think he could be a really cool character if if he wasn't handled in such a ham-handed way.
But you're going to have to defend that
because I like the idea that he's sort of strong and silent and stoic, and it makes sense that he would be stoic with their background.
Yes.
That one of them at least would be kind of more like reserved.
The quiet
and
type.
like, I'm going to keep all my emotions right here.
Until I die.
And then one day I'll die. But I think that it tries too hard because he very clearly cares about his family and is willing to be emotionally supportive and willing to talk and willing to be present in the conversation. And I've known people who are really quiet people who, when you get them close to people that they're comfortable with, are not necessarily, I don't want to say not quiet because they're still themselves, but they're a little bit more vulnerable and open and direct. And like, I think there are hints of that shown, but it's trying so hard to make him be angsty and stoic and like, all of his emotions are very like, and he quirked his mouth to the side in a sort of smile. And I knew what that meant because I know him. Mm-hmm. And like, I don't think that's necessarily bad in every instance. There are definitely moments where silent communication is really great, especially for people who ship. Yeah. It's great. But this tries so hard to lean into that he's so stoic and so quiet and so like broody.
They have a silent language.
Yeah.
The international language.
I think there was a lot done that could have been done really well with Fang, and a lot that was done
not as well.
Tropey.
Yeah.
Like really stereotypical, like goth kid. And I just, I got frustrated by that because I was kind of like that.
Yeah.
And so were you.
Yeah.
Like, we were very much the emo goth kids in our school. And so for me, I was just kind of like, okay, like he can still be stoic and like, I always think of Fang as that meme of the kid in all black sitting in his mom's minivan.
Yes.
That's how I think of Fang. I think the book tries too hard to him edgy.
Yeah, I agree.
So I think that ruins it for me. But I loved him when I was younger.
Then we have Max's son, Angel, her child.
Her son?
I'm just making fun of the teen slang from today.
Yeah. So Angel is the youngest of the flock. She's 6 years old.
She's white, blonde, blue-eyed. She has bright white wings.
She's Angel.
She's Angel.
And she has been in the flock since she was baby because they escaped 4 years before the book starts. So she was 2, essentially, when they escaped. And Max has essentially raised her. And Max definitely plays favorites in the flock. I'm just saying. And Angel is her favorite. Probably outside of Fang. It's her daughter in a lot of ways.
Yeah, they refer to each other as mother and daughter quite a bit throughout the story, or like it's implied quite a bit throughout the story, and it's kind of creepy, and I hate it.
I don't know. I think there's an extent of like a sibling raising another sibling where that sort of motherly. It gave me
Sirius and Rice vibes, if I'm being honest.
Okay.
Especially because Angel is such a creepily written character to me.
Yeah.
Because she doesn't talk like a 6-year-old.
She does not.
She doesn't act like a 6-year-old. She reads minds and acts like a total creep and lies throughout the entire book.
I like it. I don't, not like...
That's what I'm saying. She reminds me of like the little vampire girl in Interview with a Vampire. Like we're presented with what's supposed to be an angelic character.
The cutest little 6-year-old you ever did see.
And we're supposed to think that she makes her like heel face turn in the middle of the book.
But she doesn't.
I don't buy it. I think she was evil from the get-go.
Well, okay, pause. I don't think it's explicitly stated that she's made a heel face turn and that she's evil. But it is definitely implied that, whoa, she could totally be evil. Like, it's very much like, wait a second. Da-da! And then it's like, no. She's still just a 6-year-old.
She explicitly lied about the state of everyone's parents. For example, Iggy's parents. She said his mother died in childbirth. But then at the end, they found the documentation saying, no, his father's dead, but his mother's living here in this place.
Yeah.
So it's
she said that Fang's mom was a teenager, but they don't find
they have a mom
teenagers.
And dad that he looks both like.
Yeah.
And so, like, it's just...
But did she lie, or did James just forget the information that he gave us?
I don't know, but I'm going to assume that as one of the highest paid authors in the world, that it's certainly intentional and we should take it very seriously.
I don't.
But Angel is a freaky character to me, honestly.
I think Angel is creepy, and I think, not necessarily creepy, I think she is dangerous. I think she's cunning, and I think she's dangerous.
Yeah.
I think Max is kind of oblivious to it.
Yes. I think because Angel knows how to play Max like a violin.
Yeah, I think so. And I think she genuinely cares for Max.
Yeah,
there are multiple times where she's like, I want to do what Max does.
But in the way that like a sociopath cares about their children.
Yeah. Like, it's like, Max is mine.
Yeah,
and I care about her. And I don't think that that's entirely true. I think that she does care about her family. But I do think, I stopped reading the series. I've told you this already, but I would like to know if by the end of the series she's a full-on villain. Or if it's just played off as like, oh, she kind of lost her way, but she's fine. Because from where I read in the books, when I was reading, she had moments where she was really good, and then moments where, like in this book, I was sure she was going to become a villain.
I'm calling chaotic neutral, at least. Though.
Yeah.
In this particular party, chaotic neutral.
Yeah, for sure.
That is our character, and Max is going to be our lawful good, I think.
Yeah.
What would you say Fang is?
I would say Fang is probably chaotic good. He wants
good.
to do the right thing, but also like whatever that
also
takes.
is trying to be practical.
Yeah. I do think, I don't know, I think Ari is supposed to be misunderstood.
Ari is the most schizophrenically written character in this book.
He's all over the map.
This character is wild because he is resentful of everybody, but he wants to be friends and have banter with them.
But it's not well executed.
But it's not. It
just feels like he's all over the map.
He just feels like a very inconsistently written character because his character is whatever Patterson needs it to be in order to further the plot. Yeah. And it's kind of frustrating to read because he does some interesting things plot-wise with this character.
Yeah.
Like, I was genuinely shocked at the end of the book when she killed Ari because he had built him up very effectively into a major character. And I was like, so you're clearly building this rapport. It's obvious to me that this guy has a monster crush on Max. It felt that way reading the book until I got to the end where he's like, this is your brother.
I don't know that it was a crush so much as like
He explicitly refers to her in objectifying terms several times in the book.
It's kind of weird because he's like 8.
Yeah.
No, he's like 7. He's 7. He's 7 or 8. So like, what?
But he's an adult.
So it's weird.
Mm-hmm.
But then he has really like infantile moments. Mm-hmm. And one of those is expressly when she kills him and he's like, wait, you actually hurt me. Mm-hmm. I wouldn't hurt you like this. I wouldn't actually kill you. Mm-hmm. Like, this is all a game to him.
Yeah.
And then on top of that, which I know stuff from later in the books, he has some moments that are very much, he's still an 8-year-old kid. So it's really interesting.
That's not in the text of the book, really. Like, it is in some elements where she, like, says, but you should be in 2nd grade right now. And it's like, but he's been speaking with the same voice as you teenagers this entire time.
And he very clearly looks and acts like an adult.
So he's obviously not a child. Yeah. I don't understand. He's just very inconsistently written. And he's a werewolf. Let's not be coy. These are werewolves.
Yeah.
James Patterson. Look at me. These are werewolves.
They're erasers.
Ari's death, I think that was all I had for him was, wait, what? He died? And then, you killed your own brother, Harry.
Which is
my other note.
Which is Jeb. And Jeb is
wild.
A very frustrating character to me because he's also kind of all over the map.
Yeah.
And he's on her side, but he's not on her side. But he's on her side, but he wants to be her friend, but he doesn't.
Like, it's supposed to be a mystery whether he's a good guy or not, but Max obviously doesn't think he is.
And also, I, the reader, even without Max's opinion, don't think he is because he left his son behind to live with scientists who turned him into a werewolf and ditched him for 2 years and then came back. Like, he is not a good dude. Even if he's doing all of this for the greater good.
The greater good.
He's still not a good dude.
No.
Like, there is nowhere that I feel any sympathy.
This is not a morally ambiguous story.
I don't feel that he is morally ambiguous. I've never in the books felt like,
oh, I should feel sympathy for this man.
Yeah. I have always, even with his son dying, which I guess I kind of spoiled that he doesn't stay dead, but like, his son dies in this book, and Jeb screams like, that's my son, and he's all upset, like, this is my boy, but then he just completely breaks out of his misery to have like a fully like logical conversation with Max where he totally doesn't care about his son.
And then freaks out again.
And then as soon as the conversation is over, he's like, but my son, and goes
then he's
right back into crying.
He was your brother.
Yeah, it's weird. It's like, do you actually care that your son died, or are you just in it for the drama?
It kind of reminded me of that scene in Mad Max where the Fury Road, where the big, strong, dumb son of Immortan Joe starts like spreading the legend of his dead baby brother who was perfect.
Yeah,
it's like, what the hell is happening right now?
It's weird because it's like he's just in it for the drama. Like it's like he doesn't actually feel these feelings. He's just going through the motion of feeling these feelings because it's his son and he should, maybe.
Yeah, it's just very weird. It feels weird.
Yeah, I don't like it.
I have 2 notes about Nudge, by the way.
All right, we can talk about Nudge.
Sorry, unless you have more notes about Jeb.
I don't. I just don't like him. I don't think he's actually morally ambiguous, and I think he gets a lot more of a role in the story than he deserves because he's really not important, but he gets this huge role.
Yeah, it's very strange.
And even in later books, I don't feel like it's necessary. Like, it's not that he could be replaced with a lamp, but like he's not well written for the position that he's in.
He's risen to his level of incompetence in this story.
Yes.
Okay, so back to Nudge.
I like Nudge.
Nudge, first, I have 2 notes about Nudge. First note about Nudge. Nudge supposedly talks a lot.
Supposedly, but it only really comes up sometimes.
It seems to me not so much that she talks a lot, because it's not, like you said, reference that she's like babbling in the background of every scene. Instead, she just seems to bring up uncomfortable topics a lot when everybody would prefer to not talk about
In
things.
rapid fire.
In rapid fire.
And she expositions in rapid fire.
Yeah.
But when she's done talking, she just stops.
Yeah.
Like, she doesn't talk, like, there aren't moments where it's like, and we were doing this, and Nudge was talking in the background. Or, like, she only really talks when it's relevant, and she says a lot at one time, but it's not really that much. Like, it's just like, hey, here are some things that need to be discussed, and they're all like, no,
let's not do that.
Could we not? And that makes her talking a lot somehow.
Yeah, I didn't like it. And also, Nudge knows how to hack the Gibson.
She
that's
gets
pretty cool.
some Deus Ex
She sees the
Machina,
Matrix.
powers at the end and like hacks into a computer. But I'm not sure, like, I thought it was like computer powers, but I don't know what it is. Maybe it's like essence powers, but yeah, essentially she's just like, oh, suddenly I have the power to hack into this computer. And it's
how convenient for our story.
For right here in the story.
Thank you, Dungeon Master.
The only other characters that they don't really get a huge spot in the book, but I still feel that they're important, are Ella and Dr. Martinez.
Yes. Ella less interesting to me than Dr. Martinez.
Yeah, she's kind of meh. She's there.
She's
the gateway.
Yeah. I wrote, there was a really weird line in the book from Dr. Martinez where she wistfully refers to how light Max's bones are. And it, like, I had to pause it. I was in the car with my husband and we were running errands and I was forcing him to listen to this with me. And that happened and I had to pause it. And we both just kind of sat in a parking lot for a minute.
So, spoilers for future books. Well, never mind. I don't want to spoil future. It comes up. Her weird wistfulness. There's a reason for it.
Seriously?
Yeah.
So it's not bad that I noticed how weird that was?
No.
Okay.
It wasn't. Yeah, the weird wistfulness about the bones is kind of relevant.
So that's foreshadowing then. That's good to know. Yeah. That's a good place for us to cut in. Just that the wistfulness about the bones is foreshadowing.
It is.
Ella's not really a character. I sort of wistfully mused myself about whether or not the dog named Magnolia was supposed to be symbolic of anything. Maybe. They say Magnolia like 14 times in 2 paragraphs.
They're really heavy on, he's kind of heavy on like, yeah, it's a thing. He's like, mostly he's like really snappy. Yeah. Style-wise. His style, I think his style is really like crisp and bombastic. Like, I think it's very engaging. He has a really good style for action. Yeah. It's like reading a screenplay is what it reminded me of. It's like reading, and he throws lots of shade on Hollywood in this book. He does. Because I actually laughed
at the audacity of some of the Hollywood jokes.
Yeah. Here's what I wrote, and I want to read it because I think he has great ideas, good character setups with poor follow through. And then I said, he sets up a nice frame, but then he paints a lazy picture. And like, that was the best way for me to sort of contextualize how I felt about it, because I feel like the story of the book is really interesting. The characters are really interesting, and his ideas as a whole are really interesting. But the book itself, all of the fill-in feels really lazily done and sloppy.
Yeah, I don't even know. I wrote the thing that I actually really like about this isn't so much this character setups, because I, from the beginning, disliked Max. I'm not a huge fan of her, but I think he has really good word variety.
He does.
And he has very concise dialogue. He can get a lot of information through to the audience very quickly when he wants to. And there's a big caveat, of course, when he wants to. Mm-hmm. Because he doesn't trust his audience.
He does not trust his audience.
At all. I have so many notes about him not trusting his audience. I took like 10 pages of notes for this book, and most of them are just him. They're just silly quotes of him reiterating the same point.
Yeah, over and over and over.
It's just not good.
He really wants it to go home. Like, he wants you really to get the point.
Like, we get 3 explanations that these are bird children within the first 3 chapters of the book. Mind you, the chapters are 3 pages long each.
They are very short chapters. The chapters, you listen to the audiobook, so you don't know.
Yeah.
But the chapters are incredibly short. Like, one chapter is a half page at one point. They're usually like 2-3 pages, and they break in really weird spots, like in the middle of dialogue. And like, there isn't any setting or scene change. He just doesn't want to write in that chapter anymore, I guess.
Yeah.
There's no
just done
purpose for it.
The scene's over.
New chapter. And it's bizarre. It's really bizarre, and I'm not sure why it's like that. And because of that, there are like 100 and some chapters in the book, but like, I was halfway through the book. I was on like chapter 100, and I was like, what? Like, because it's very like, the chapters are just so short, which that's not entirely uncommon in YA literature, but to be that short and with no purpose to it is like,
yeah,
weird.
It just added to the artificially fast-paced feeling nature of the book.
Which I do think he does a good job of making it feel fast-paced to an extent.
I don't think it's good that it feels fast-paced.
I do think, I think it's like an action. So it's like a fun read with like that action, like momentum is what he's going for.
Yeah, but it's exhausting. Like, he describes Max's character as exhausted. I kind of lost count in the book.
Yeah, she's real tired.
She's so tired, you guys. And by the time he got to like the 4th or 5th one, I was like, I'm tired too, girl. Like,
let her sleep.
Let Max sleep.
Yeah.
Voice, leave her alone.
Quit trying to give her riddles.
She needs some rest.
Yeah. Like, well, I think
distracted.
But I do think that's sort of supposed to feel that way. You're supposed to kind of feel a little bit strung out with Max, because she is sort of,
I guess that's
they're pushing her to her limit.
I guess that's technically good technique, but I just didn't enjoy it. I just felt sympathy for the main character, and it made me realize that I am old and I'm also tired.
But it is fun to read, but that fastness I also think is rushed. Not in like it's fast and we're moving fast, like momentum, but rushed and like, because of the way that he follows through everything. There's so much plot, and also, there's no plot, but there are so many things that need to happen. Like, there is plot. I'm sorry. That was unfair. That was uncharitable.
There's mild plot.
There is some plot, but more than that, there are things that need to happen. And they aren't necessarily plot relevant, but they do need to happen, and they need to happen quick. And because of that, the book feels very...
It's like a D&D campaign.
And like,
that's what it feels like to me. It feels like it starts and stops. Like, it sort of has that same sort of boom, 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 we're fighting, we're very tense. Like, you'll have 2 or 3 sessions in a row sometimes even where you've had like really tense battles or really tense interrogations, and then all of a sudden you're stuck in like Hamletsville at a tavern for like chilling. 4 sessions, and you're bored to death.
Well, not bored to death. I think those are fun.
Well, you gotta let the dungeon master write his next part of the session, but you can't stop meeting up, or then you'll fall apart as a group. Yeah, that's how that works.
It's definitely very much like random encounter. random encounter. And they don't have any reason.
Whether or not they succeed at things feels like they rolled for the rolled initiative to see if they hit.
Well, and like, so the bad guys will like show up and then just like leave. And I want to just kind of take a brief moment to go through this with you. So when they show up to kidnap Angel, they come and they kidnap Angel, and Ari knocks Max out. She is unconscious. Mm-hmm. She wakes up. The battle is still happening around her, but they just are leaving with Angel. They're not still like attacking her and her group. He doesn't try to kill her. He doesn't try to take her. He just tries to take Angel. But then immediately after that, Gazzy and Iggy are chilling at the E-house because they got left behind, and all of the erasers are around looking for them. And I'm like, but why? They didn't need to. They could have just taken them right then. Mm-hmm. They could have taken Max right then, but they didn't. They left her behind. So then stuff happens. We fight with them some more times. And then later they get Angel back, and they're in New York, and they're up in a tree, and Ari shows up and a bunch of erasers, and they're surrounded. And Angel and Max jump down from the tree, and Angel somehow gets back up in the tree, and it's fine. And Max is surrounded by these people, and they're like, blah, 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 blah. And they're all in her face about how they're going to get her. And then they're like, oh, the director's calling. We've got to leave. And they just leave.
Yeah.
Like, they're not actually there to do anything but harass them. And, they're on the beach.
They're sleeping.
Yeah, like, they're on the beach sleeping, and the erasers show up.
That's the real theme of this book. James Patterson's crying out for help, you guys.
Let him sleep. But, like, they're sleeping on the beach, and all of the erasers just show up and wake everybody up, and they beat the crap out of Fang, and they knock his head against a rock, and then they're like, all right, well, bye. Peace. And they just leave. Like, they're not even there for an end. Like, they don't have a goal.
No.
They have no goals. They're just following these kids around, torturing them. Like,
basically.
And I guess maybe it ties in with everything is a test, but if that's the case, like, at least pretend like you have a plan. Like, don't just have them just chilling around, like, making angry remarks.
There's some other ways to test them.
Yeah.
Ways that are less annoying.
It's just weird. It's just weird. They don't have a plan. There's no reason for it. They just show up and then they leave. Kind of like their powers. Kind of like the Flock's powers. They just show up and leave as well. Mm-hmm. So, I'm sorry. I just wanted to take a moment to talk about that. And, like, there's just so many questions that are asked in this book that are never answered.
Yeah. He definitely drops the ball a lot with planting and payoff and foreshadowing. Like, it's a serious issue for me.
It's a problem.
He foreshadows a lot of stuff that he pays off almost immediately, and then he sets stuff up that he doesn't pay off at all, and it seems like it's a dropped thread. Like,
and again, I hate to use the other books within this because I know we're just analyzing this book, but as someone who's read some of the future books, that continues. And that's what I think frustrates me, knowing that it continues in my mind, rereading this and being like, he still doesn't really give me payoff for this in the next 5 books. Yeah. Like,
I never did get into why he doesn't trust his audience, though.
Oh, sorry.
I had a short, we had the 3 explanations within, of them being bird children in 3 chapters, which is a lot. I think your audience knows by now that they're reading about bird children. Calm down.
They continue to remind us.
Because the first one that made me, really stop and have to start writing these instances down was the line, and their voices echoed mine. Angel! Were they just... that should have been the end of the paragraph. That should have been the end of the paragraph, right? Their voices echoed mine. That means they said the same thing as me. Then you don't say the same thing right after that, right?
I mean, maybe he was trying to really drive that point home.
No kidding. Another one that we get driven home is we have I mouthed silently. That one's pretty egregious there. We also have it's just lots of lines where she reiterates the same thing immediately after saying something. Like, there was one that was her describing someone's voice as rough and callous and coarse and manly, I guess, and gristled.
I think it's okay to do that a little bit, but yeah, she is the master of redundancy. She likes to be like, I'm super fast and speedy.
Yeah.
And it's like, you could have just said I'm super fast or I'm super speedy, but you gotta say fast and speedy, and she does that with Fang.
I'm quick, fast, and in a hurry.
Yeah. and Fang is silent and strong and quiet and tough. Like, we get it. Like, I get what you're saying there. There is some of that sort of like, he doesn't think that we're going to remember. But I think, honestly, and I'm sorry if this is not a fair assumption, I think it's because he won't remember. And I say this because not just because in this book, but in other books, he brings up things and then immediately forgets about them and brings them up in a different way later. And you're like, what? That doesn't match up. And one of the things about that is, and again, this is kind of diving into the other books, but he definitely, it happens a little bit in this book, but like, so the book starts 4 years after they've escaped the school. Jeb helped them escape and brought them to the E-house, right? Mm-hmm. And then 2 years pass and Jeb supposedly dies. And then 2 years pass and we start this book and they go on the run for the first time. But they reference like periods of time where they've been on the run, like having to eat scary things and having to do all these different things while they were on the run. But it is clearly laid out for us that they were never on the run. They left with Jeb and went to a house.
Yeah, and then that's where they were until all of a sudden action happened.
So it's just frustrating because he references things that don't make sense within what they've already told us have happened. And he does that throughout the stories. Yeah. Like he multiple times will forget facts that he's told us. And I don't think it's necessarily like all him. I think some of it is like he's rushing through a book. He puts out his draft and his fact checkers aren't catching it. I'm not sure, but it's very frustrating to me.
Also, we got to talk about the second act plot dump.
Yeah.
As my final point here. So in my notes, I actually wrote, thanks for the second act plot, Angel, because when the story should be over halfway through the book.
They get Angel back from the school. They escape.
They're safe for now. That should be the end of the book.
We're wrapping up.
And then Angel goes, I heard about your parents and a thing in New York that sounds scary.
And it will have more information about your parents. And then they're like, cool.
And they all decided independently together to further the plot for 200 more pages.
It's true.
It's
true. It very much should have ended there, or at least had less of a wrap up feel.
Yeah, it was a weird like bit of tonal whiplash. It felt like the end of an arc in a D&D game. Like, this doesn't feel like it was plotted out like a book. It just doesn't to me.
No, I could agree with that. I definitely agree with that. And in that, they go across like the country. They travel a lot. Like, this book is all over the place on the map, but also like metaphorically in that like they're in California.
They go all across the US.
And then they fly to New York. Now I'm throwing pens. What is happening to us?
What are you doing?
I don't know. So they're like, they start out one place, they fly to California, and then they fly to New York. And like, it's very like, one thing that I will say he does really well is he sets, sorry, I was formulating my words as I was talking. But one thing that he does really well, I think, is he makes you feel there. Like, I definitely feel like he's spent time in New York.
Oh, yeah. He was extremely descriptive about New York.
And I think he spent some time in California as well. Both felt like real places, and I felt like it made sense to me where they were. However, it doesn't really matter. Like, it matters because that's where they're supposed to go and where they're supposed to be. But, like, it's not really, like, it could have happened anywhere. It just happens to be in New York.
Also, the places that cannot possibly be places, I feel like, are the ones that feel the least grounded in reality.
Yeah,
like there is a homeless people's city under the subway, and it just is. It doesn't make sense because it's obvious that trains go through that area.
Well, I think it's supposed to be an offshoot, like a closed offshoot area, but it's not really described super well. Those do happen sometimes in subway systems, like those like closed off areas, but like it feels very weirdly, and all of the like the staging of it changes from time to time, and the way they describe it changes from time to time, and I'm kind of like, okay, so there's a ledge. Like, it's unclear. And it's the same with the Institute. When they go underground to the Institute, they go down into the sewers, and then they find a door, and then they walk down some stairs, and then they find another door.
They act like it's impossible to get to, but then they act like people go to work there every day.
Yeah, it was really... It's
very inconsistent.
And not just that, but I was confused by the fact that they get there. I've read this book multiple times, because I read it a lot when I was younger. Every single time I get to the scene where they've gone through the sewers and they open the like weird door with no knob, and then they go into like the dark room, and then they keep traveling, and then they're on carpet. I always like zone out because I can't understand where they are until they get to the carpet room. I'm like, then they have dirty feet on the carpet, and that pulls me back in every time. So I'm like, okay, I know where we are. I'm grounded now.
Mm-hmm.
We're dirty feet on carpet. We've been in the sewer, and now we're on a carpet. Got it. Like that whole area in between, I'm like, I can't visualize it because the way he describes it doesn't make sense, and it doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter. It just doesn't matter.
Yeah, it's he does a good job when it seems like he's been there, and setting the scene as long as it makes sense. The moment it kind of stops making sense, which but it really doesn't make sense. There is no like in between of like, okay, I kind of get it, but sorry guys, there was a really, really big bug and we had to
take a break.
We had to abandon ship to stop the bug.
We had to protect our property.
We did. But yeah, it's very much like when you're in it, when it's making sense, he does a really good job of setting the scene and the action and making it really clear. But the moment that he sort of
doesn't seem to have a grounding himself,
it's really hard to follow. I've had moments where I've spent several minutes trying to figure out what's happening.
Related to why his style seems so cinematic too.
Yeah.
He's definitely just describing a movie in his head, it feels like. And it's a movie without a plot.
It has a plot. But it's not, the plot isn't important.
It has a lot of bad slang, a lot of house porn or house fetishization is what I would call it. Like she talks about a lot of the details in every house or building she goes into. In the same way that in a lot of YA books, someone would talk about clothing.
Yeah.
So it was enough that it stood out to me because I also do that. So it was interesting. And then also there was a Bowling for Columbine reference, which I thought was timely.
Yeah, there are definitely a lot of outdated references in this. It strikes a very weird balance. I wrote this down. It has a very weird way of being really well written to its audience, because I clearly felt that way when I was younger, but also very clearly being written by a boomer. Like it's super weird because it's like very much like this is teens and for teens, and it makes sense for teens.
But teens like political cartoons too, so
it's just weird. There are moments where it just all of a sudden it's like, actually no.
Mm-hmm.
And it's really in my face now that I'm older, which is funny to me because when I was younger, I just ignored those references. But now I'm like, what?
Yeah, Max literally calls someone a weenie.
Several times.
And
also dipstick is mentioned several times. He's afraid to curse.
He talks about cursing.
Yeah, they talk about cursing a lot. They're like, oh yeah, like we curse, or like I curse vehemently, like I very much curse, lots of cursing, even new curse words. But then like anytime that there's a moment that's like perfect for a curse word, not that I'm saying they should curse, but anytime there's a moment set up. He
literally says heck.
Yeah, heck, dipstick, weenie, butthead, like it's all like very pencil childish. Neck. Like he's afraid to have the teenagers cursing, and I think part of that is because he doesn't want to encourage teenagers to curse. And I appreciate where he's coming from with it, but also like
it feels silly.
It does, especially when she straight up has said that she curses.
Yeah.
Like, it's just kind of weird to be like, yeah, I curse, but you're never going to hear it. Like, it's just
very
weird.
Strange. He's a bit heavy-handed with his symbolism.
Yeah, lots of cages as symbolisms of being trapped, which is kind of like,
flight
okay, we get
as
it.
a symbolism of freedom.
Yeah.
There's the one that stood out to me though, and you aren't quite on board with this when we discussed it initially, but school as a symbol, or education as a symbol in this book, as an explicitly bad thing, as a symbol of oppression.
I think he does use some jokes about it because it's called The School.
Well, I'm not even talking just about that. He also refers to, the characters explicitly can't spell well when they're playing a game of hangman, so it causes them to have fights. But Max says, but that's okay because they're special in other ways. And it's like, I appreciate maybe...
I don't necessarily think that that's symbolism, though. I just think that that's a point he's trying to make.
Just because it's unintentional symbolism doesn't mean symbolism isn't there.
Maybe. Maybe.
I just
agree to disagree.
There were a ton of references to education as a negative in the book, I felt like. And it was enough that I wrote it down several times. So.
Interesting. Well, and he's actually... James Patterson's really involved in outreach for young readers.
That's what made it seem so strange to me, because it's obvious, like, these characters will say really smart stuff sometimes, and it's...
Maybe his issue is with the school system itself.
Maybe.
I don't know. I didn't really catch a lot of that. This whole book is a
metaphor for the school system, you guys.
I didn't really catch a lot of that, but I did catch a lot of the, like, school because it's called The School, lots of and The Institute, lots of jokes made in that respect.
Yeah.
But I didn't really necessarily feel like it was intentional symbolism or anything like that. I just think it was sort of it's called The School, so we're going to make jokes about it type. Mm-hmm. I will say it's fun and short, so it's it can be a fun read, but a lot happens. But literarily, it's just not really there for me. That's just kind of how I felt about it. I did a tropes count. I kind of started changing the way that I did my tropes count.
The way that you've changed your tropes count. It makes a lot more sense.
Our list for tropes that we count in our tropes count is 14 things.
At the moment.
At the moment, we have 14 things on there.
We're noticing new things.
We have mirror descriptions, outfit descriptions, love triangles, dead parents / orphans, a mentor character, adults decide your life at age whatever. There are bonus points if it's a lottery style. Mm-hmm. A chosen one, MacGuffin,
prophecy,
or the goober if you watch Into the Spider-Verse. I'm not like the other girls or boys. Puberty symbolism, prophecy, a person that's a lamp, crazy hair, and mean teachers. So that's 14
Did you get mentor
total.
Character in there too?
Yeah, I did. That's 14 total. For this book, I got 8 out of 14. So over half of our list got hit in this book. The most egregious was not like the other girls, but I also wrote down mentor character because of Jeb, outfit descriptions, and we have decided to count. They talk about the wings a lot. We've decided to count those as outfit descriptions because it's written like an outfit description.
Even referring to their wingspans, she refers to Fang's 14-foot wingspan as with a wink, basically, and it's not explicit.
I don't know that was the goal either, but orphans, she is the chosen one. So much the chosen one. She's supposed to save the world. There are several MacGuffins, especially
Angel.
Yeah, Angel's MacGuffin. Prophecy. There's straight prophecy. And crazy hair, because we do take a break from the action in the middle of the story for them to get a makeover. And I thought it was funny. And then we get actual outfit descriptions after that for a short time. And then they go away. And we were back to wings.
Yeah, but it was
8 out of 14. Do you have any final points that you wanted to make?
Not really, other than the voiceover audiobook was phenomenal. Thank you, Evan Rachel Wood, for giving your most. And also, I'm sorry.
This book is very kind of cringy, angsty. I read this, like I said, in high school a lot, and I always read it with the backdrop of Fall Out Boy playing. I had one of those stereos in my room that had played 6 different CDs, and I would put all 2 Fall Out Boy CDs in there. I think I had 1 Panic at the Disco CD in there, and I would just put them on a loop while I read these books, which is so cringe to admit. But when I was reading this series on my lunch break, I put on some new Fall Out Boy.
Oh my God.
As a reminder that I did this, and it still worked. It's Fall Out Boy has grown and changed, and I have grown and changed. These books have remained the same, but it still worked.
I will say one last point I want to come back to because it's very important to me. The erasers are just werewolves.
You've said this multiple times, Jessica.
I don't, much like James Patterson, I don't respect my audience and their ability to see things for themselves.
They are definitely werewolves.
Make me rich.
You're not wrong.
They're werewolves.
Yeah, they're definitely werewolves. It's my overall opinion of this.
Sexy werewolves.
My overall opinion of the book is just that the framework is there, but the execution is sloppy. Yeah. So, what did you give this book in terms of literary merit?
I gave it a 1.
Okay, I gave it a 2. I may have overestimated it a little, but I felt like there was some, because this inspires so much, this is the first story that I felt like I could add on to. Yeah. And I wrote fan fiction for it, which I will fully admit.
Hey, no judgment on the fanfic, because that's how a lot of writers really start honing in, practicing their voice and practicing, structure.
This was the first time I'd read a book where I was like, I could do that, which is maybe kind of a backslap to James Patterson. But also, it was the first book that I was like, I want to share my ideas of me doing that. Because the characters were already there, and he had set up a good outline, and I got to play with that outline, and I thought that was really fun. So I gave it a 2 just because I think it had something, obviously, or it wouldn't have inspired me into action like that. Yeah. I don't know what that something is. I'm just kidding. I think that something is, he has decent character work to start, as well as...
He has good ideas for characters.
He has good ideas.
And we never did talk about, I almost forgot, we never did talk about the book that this was sort of all based off of, When the Wind Blows. I actually read that in high school and loved that book.
Yeah.
And I suspect it still probably holds up. Like, it felt a lot more mature in tone to me, I think, at the time.
Well, because it wasn't a teen book.
Yeah.
And I think part of that comes to how he treats his audience. But overall, I mean, yeah, I think there's stuff there. I think it has some literary merit. You could discuss it.
No, it didn't give it a 0.
It's not great. I gave it a 2.
I mean, like, it's got upsides there. Fun factor. What'd you give it?
I gave it a 3.4, but mostly out of nostalgia. I think maybe that's a bit high, but I think a lot of that was me giving it points because I used to love it.
Because I read the audiobook version, I gave it a 4.5. I am dead serious. I had so much fun listening to this book.
I listened to the sample for the audiobook. So we're listening through the library version that we have.
It's abridged.
We're broke.
So it cut out like half the story.
I would talk about things that happened for us to discuss, and she was like, that didn't happen in my book. Like, it just cut it out because we were listening to the library version because we're broke. But yeah, I did listen to the sample, and it was wow. It was very dramatic, and I appreciate that she went for it.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun. I highly recommend it. Like, honest to God, if you enjoyed like Troll 2, definitely listen to the audiobook for this book. It is a lot of fun. I mean it. It's fun.
Overall opinion.
I gave it a 2.
I gave it a 2.5. And again, some of that I think comes from nostalgia. I think it's a fun read. If you just like action and you don't really care about like any of the like depth, you just want to read something for fun and you're just like, meh, this is fun.
I gave it some value. I mean, yeah, it's had some literary merit value, and I gave it some value for the fun factor, but honestly, I also gave it that extra point that I probably wouldn't have given it, just because I think it has a lot of value for young writers. I saw how much value it had for you as a young writer, and like having the sort of blank slate Neo characters to work off of. Yeah. Like, that's a really useful tool for young writers to have. And there's a lot of interesting technique that is good for young writers to start building on that he utilizes in this book.
I agree. So totaling that up.
That is 2.56 total. So it just sort of barely ooches into that meh category.
Scraped on into the meh category.
So yeah, take it or pass it. It's no judgment either way from us.
If you decide to read it, definitely listen to
the audiobook.
It's worth it. We are not sponsored.
No. Audible, sponsor us. I miss my Audible account.
We are not trying to get you to do this. We got it for free from the library. So like, but really you should for sure listen to it. It's great. I'm Jessica. I'm Kayla.
And this has been the YA Sisterhood. We've been explaining this great book.
Yeah. If you guys are interested in hearing more content from us, or, talking to us further about this book or any of the other books we've reviewed, or if you would like to try and guess what book we're going to be reading next, check us out on social media. All of our links are in the description. They're on our page at the top if you're there. Yeah. All of our pages have all of our links, so just check us out.
Yeah, we probably spend the most time on Insta and Facebook.
Yeah.
The most time we can. We both have day jobs, though, so like this week we posted maybe a little less than we normally would. And if you guess the book right, we will shout you out on our next episode.
We do want to give a brief shout out to our first, proper
the person,
book guess.
Who is the person who is the James Patterson fan. So hopefully he's still here.
John. Thank you so much for taking the time to like our stuff and comment on it and trying to guess the book. Your guess really was good and we appreciated it.
Yeah, absolutely. And you seem like a talented illustrator, so that was pretty cool to see.
So I hope that you take this episode with a grain of salt and reach out if you want to discuss it further.
Yeah, absolutely.
But yeah, thanks so much for guessing, and anybody else who guesses, feel free to check it out, and maybe we'll give you a shout out on the podcast.
Yeah, we might talk about you, and you'll be famous to 12 people.
It'll be great.
All right, see y'all later.
Bye.